Yeah. So we have already gone through magnetic circuits, the concept of it, converting a magnetic device into a magnetic circuits. Now we'll apply the similar concept in the force on magnetic materials. So think about this particular application. I mean, finding the force needed will be used in like magnetic levitations. Okay, used in magnetic levitation. Then electromagnets, relays, rotating machines, okay, and so on. So in short, what we are think about this as an example where we have a iron core, and what we are doing is we have wound a coil around this iron core, and then we are trying to pull this particular piece of magnetic material, which is also, let's say, iron core, towards it. So how much of a force will be needed to be generated for it to pull this particular object will be dependent on there are two air gaps here, right? So will be dependent on how much of energy is stored in this particular air gap. So you'll have to overcome that energy for you to either pull this object or go towards this object. So that will be dependent on this particular energy. So that energy gap we'll have to find out, and that energy will have to be converted into force. The length of the air gap is dl. So in such kind of scenarios, it becomes useful if we just convert this force into some kind of a magnetic field, into this magnetic field, which in turn is dependent on the current I. Okay, we know that the energy generated in energy in a magnetic field is given as half into energy density. In fact, energy density is given as half b square upon mu 0, right? Mu 0. So now if this is the whole concept is like what we are doing here is we are passing a current I through it. The moment I pass a current I through this, there is some kind of a magnetic field which will be generated. There will be a magnetic field generated, and the direction of the magnetic field will be this direction, right? So it will be like guided by this core, and then the magnetic field will when it passes through this guided core, it will cause a generation of flux, right? Flux will be like this flux will be like guided by, it will be confined to this particular core itself. Now this magnetic field, once it reaches here, it will just now air is a medium, so what will happen is it will just pass through the air and it will take different paths. It's no longer confined to the core, so it's got an open air, so it will spread itself in all the directions, and it will terminate itself on this particular core, right? And then again it will flow from here, and then again it finds air here, and it's again going to be like spread across the air medium, and then it will again flow through this core, which will be again confined, right? So what we are seeing here is this magnetic field, this bulging or this spreading of this particular magnetic field in different directions is called as fringing effect. Okay, this is called as a fringing effect because it is changing from one medium to the other medium of different permeability, right? So it's called as a fringing effect. So what we will do here is, for simplicity, we will be like we will not consider the fringing effect, and what we'll assume here is that the magnetic field actually flows in a confined fashion, like how it is flowing in this particular core. It will also continue to flow here too, so it is going to like follow the same path. Okay, it's going to be confined here in this core, it's in this core it's going to go, and then again it will like follow the confined part to the core of the electromagnet, right? So that's the path it will follow. So we are actually neglecting the fringing fields. The fringing field effect I told you, right? Like once it comes here and then it finds that it's a air, the field gets distributed in all directions. It causes bulging. It's no longer following a straight path or a confined path. Okay, so that's called as a fringing effect. So now what we know is how much of a force will be needed for you to get this rod up towards the electromagnet will be dependent on how much of energy is stored in this particular air gap. There are two air gaps here. So now that air gap, the energy density of the air gap is given by assuming that B is the field which is generated by this flow of current. Then the energy density, we have already seen, it is half into B square by mu 0. Energy density is basically energy per unit volume. So now we know that the volume of this particular air gap here, so let me just show you this. Energy of this particular air gap here is volume of this particular air gap here is dl into the area, right? So I can write this as dl into the cross sectional area of the core. Okay, dl into s. So that is your energy, total energy stored in the air gap. I know that how much of a work will have to be done will be same as your energy, right? So how much work will have to be done? Now we are assuming a small area, so I'll just say that it's a small energy of that particular air gap, right? So there are two air gaps, so I'll have to multiply this energy into 2. Okay, into 2. Now how much of a work will have to be done, or how much of a force will have to be exerted, will be given as this will be equal to dWe, so this dWe will be equal to minus F into dl. This will be the force which will have to be exerted for you to do that much amount of work, right? So that F into dl, it's minus F into dl because your dl is decreasing, the force is upwards. Okay, so the F is total force. Half of the force will be for this air gap, half of the force will be for pulling this, getting this side of the rod, right? So F into dl will be given as dWe, or dWe is, I have used a notation as M, right, because it's a magnetic field energy. So I will be consistent and just use M here and here. So this will be M and this will be M. So work done will be F into dl. So that I can equate to 2 into B square by mu 0 dl into S. So the moment I equate those two, what I get is the force that will have to be generated for you to pull that particular to overcome that air gap will be V square into S divided by mu 0. Mu 0 is the permeability of the air, S is the cross sectional area of the electromagnet, okay, of the core of the electromagnet, and B is the magnetic field generated. So F is the total force. So 1/2 of the force will be given as minus B square S divided by 2 mu 0. Okay, so so that's about it. I mean, we know that so that is the amount of force on the magnetic materials. I mean, how you can generate this force on magnetic material by having your B changed. B is, we know, is directly dependent on the current, right? Ni by L. Mu into Ni by L is what we got as B in this case. Okay, N is the number of turns, I is the current passed, and L is the length of the core. Okay, so now the whole idea of going through this magnetic circuits was to convert this kind of a circuit, this kind of a device into this kind of a circuit. Now if you see here, what we are doing here is we are replacing this particular section of turns with MMF, with the magnetomotive force. Okay, that is equivalent to or analogous to the battery voltage supply, okay, in the electrical circuit. So here we are replacing it with AB with F. So that's your MMF which is generated. Now what we observe is the flux. Flux is same as your analogous to current, right? So the flux is flowing through this particular core here. Now what I need here is to find the reluctance. Reluctance, we have told that it is similar to analogous to a resistance. We know that reluctance is given by mu s. So now what is L? L is the length of the core. Length of the core is the mean length of the core. So something like this, complete circumference of this particular ring, cylindrical ring that we have. So this, what we do here is we take a mean circle around this particular ring, mean circle of radius rho 0. So your L will be given as 2 pi into rho 0, which will be the circumference of that mean length, mean radius circle. Okay, so the mean circle. So that will be your mean length. L will be given by 2 pi into rho 0. S we know is, we are given a diameter of 2a. So I know that my S will be equal to pi into a square. Okay, I know what is mu. Mu will be dependent on the core. So if I use iron core, it will have a certain mu. If I use some other material, it will have a certain mu. Okay, so I know my mu, L, S. So I can find out the reluctance. Once I know my reluctance, I know that Ohm's law tells me that the psi upon the MMF divided by psi is equal to reluctance, right? What will be unknown is here is I need to know how many. Sometimes what I'll need is, if I want to generate what you call as these particular parameters, then I need to know what will be my I, right? So I have all the knowns because I know my L, I know my mu, I know my S, I know the number of turns. So what I will need is I, how much of a current will I have to pass for you to generate that much of a flux. Okay, so that will be like here the unknown is only I can calculate using this particular formula. So that's the whole goal behind it. Like when we are trying to find out why we are doing this, is the whole process of converting this into a magnetic circuit is things become easier. I know how to calculate now the current I, how much of a current I will have to pass for me to generate that kind of a flux. Okay, or that kind of a magnetic field in terms of this here it will be like for the force to be generated by the electromagnet. So it depends on the kind of problem you have, so I can apply it. The only thing is I have to convert this particular device into a circuit. Now take for example this particular circuit, right, this particular device. So here if you see, there are like 400 turns are given around here, and then there is a air gap here, and then there is a core which is guiding, and the flux is confined here. So if you see the flux, the current is flowing in this direction, so the magnetic field will be going in this direction and in this direction, confined to this particular core, right? So I can replace this particular device into some kind of a circuit like this. Like I will be replacing this guy here with a supply with certain MMF. Okay, then there will be a resistance of the air gap, or reluctance of the air gap. Okay, I can call it a RA. Then there will be the resistance of this guy here, and the core here. Okay, I know my mean length here will be like depending on this, right? This particular length is 1 centimeter, so what I will be left with like a 4 centimeters and 4 centimeters here, right? Sorry, 4.5 and 4.5 centimeters. So I can calculate the resistance here, reluctance, sorry, of this particular. I can call this as R31, R31. Okay, and then I will have a reluctance of this guy, and this guy here. So 3 reluctances I can calculate based on the length, right? I have my length is 10 plus 10, 20 plus 30. I know my mu, I know the S is the cross sectional area, I know that. So then this I can convert it into another form of reluctance. Okay, so this will be my reluctance, which will be given as R of 341. Okay, same way I can draw another reluctance here, which is R32, okay, and then the circuit gets completed here. So now I can use my Ohm's law for getting my numericals. Okay, so I know the Ohm's law here is like the flux here will be flowing in this direction, okay, and this direction here. So we know that when the flux is in series, okay, when these guys are in series, you have this flux which is given as, when it is in parallel it is psi1 plus psi2, when it is in series it is psi1 equal to psi2. So this will be in parallel, so psi1 plus psi2 will become equal to psi. So you will solve some problems with respect to this kind of devices, but this is the concept. I mean, the whole concept is to like convert this particular device into this kind of a circuit, analogous circuit, and these are your reluctances. So I have made a mistake about. Okay, so I am going to denote the reluctance something like this, and MMF as something like this. That's it.